for inviting me. Sorry I'm late. Yeah, and I would want to carry on with your point about the collapsing industry. You were talking about the sugar belt. You were talking about all the companies and all the outgrower farms which were supporting smallholder, farmers and whatnot. And being from Thika, I have the same kind of experience. So Thika was an industrial town. It used to be called the Birmingham of Kenya. So yeah, there were all these companies, especially in the textile industry. There was KTM, there was what, and so because of the structural adjustment programs, they came with some malicious or notorious or mischievous attachments or riders that you must liberalize, you must open your market for cheap imports, and that's how the Mutumba sector grew. And so we are here glorifying the Gikomba industry and whatnot. We are glorifying them because of importing second-hand clothes, but essentially, the only reason why new clothes or brand new clothes are expensive in Kenya is because of taxes, is because of the environment which has made it unconducive to produce. So it goes the entire chain. They dropped all the subsidies, all the incentives they used to give to farmers who used to grow cotton or who used to rear sheep for wool, and so they made domestic production expensive, and then we opened ourselves for cheap imports. A lot of companies now shut down because they could no longer sustain, not just on the so I've seen Thika move from being, that semi-urban, plush town into being just another, shithole town. Because of that, because of the parliament, our problem begins and ends with parliaments when they talk about these structural adjustment programs. You look at when the World Bank and IMF started implementing that, they then created this committee. It was called a privatization committee, and then there was the Ndegwa family. You guys think so highly about the Ndegwa family because they own NIC and NCPA. But if you look, their father, who was once a central bank governor called Philip Ndegwa, was the chairman of that privatization commission or committee that was formed in conjunction with the World Bank and the IMF, so that we can be part of these structural adjustment programs, conditionalities for us to access loans so as to bridge the deficit that has been created by bad governance. So Philip Ndegwa becomes the chairman of the privatization commission. What does he first do? Anajichotea pesa zake. He first grabs a few companies. There was Nairobi Airport Services called NAS. There were many other companies which were grabbed during that period. But then you'll realize that the World Bank is hiding behind some of these government officials, and then they make it as if that, we are selling these parastatals to clear our debt. But no, it is them who are grabbing. So during that period is when we saw the privatization of companies like Kenya Power. If you look at Kenya Power, since it was privatized, has our power bills, have they been cheaper or more? So the privatization was just a hoodwink. It was just a scam crafted for a few elites like Mamangina to grab our state-owned corporations. Look at Safaricom. During the same period, we had the Kenya Post and Telecommunications Corporation. Then, because of some mambo jumbo and magic over here, we were told it must be privatized. And so Safaricom was a department under the Kenya Post and Telecommunications Corporation. You understand? And that's where we have these clowns like Gideon Moi owning Mobitelea, 5% of Safaricom, given for free, under the guise that Vodafone is the one which is buying it. But Vodafone was giving 5% to Gideon Moi as a bribe because of acquiring Safaricom, which was a department of Kenya Post and Telecommunications Corporation. Look at something like Kenya Airways. We were told and we were fashioned. I remember I was reading the newspapers, I was very young, and they told us that privatization is a quick fix panacea, that because we are going to privatize, things are going to be better. Now, because the old generation of useless bastards, the boomers, if you are a boomer over here and you're there, you are a useless bastard, they bought into the idea of privatization. They bought into the idea of, oh, we let's get the golden handshake, and being stupid as they are, and even today they are still very stupid, they signed themselves up for a suicide. And so Kenya Airways, which was a fully state-owned corporation, has changed hands. It was sold first to KLM, and then there was this partnership between KLM. And then what they did is now, when they got to now the worst part, which was during the Uhuru era, they started selling our primest landing spots. For instance, Kenya Airways used to land in London at 6:10 a.m. There was a flight leaving Nairobi to London at 6:10. They sold that. They sold that to some, I don't know whether it's Bahrain or one of those companies or one of those countries. They sold that slot to bridge the deficit about debt that we don't know how it was incurred. We don't know how Kenya Airways got broke. We don't know how Kenya Airways got into debt, but somehow we have, because that is, your landing slot is almost like a sovereign parcel of land. You sell it, you concede it to another country to bridge problems that you yourselves have created. And so when we are talking about auditing debt, Jimmy Wajegi is talking about odious debt. If we are talking about it, we are not just limiting ourselves to the debt. We are looking at the atrocities committed at the turn of the 80s to the 90s, where now that character, that clown called Philip Ndegwa, who was a central bank governor, who you guys are shamelessly praising today because they are rich, because you guys, your self-esteem has been suppressed. You are praising that clown, saying that they are rich, but they themselves stole, their wealth is accrued. I used to read articles that Philip Ndegwa is rich. He was the first Kenyan to bank 1 billion. How are you banking 1 fucking billion? You have no manufacturing company. You're not a farmer of repute. You're not an innovator or inventor. And then you bank 1 billion. Where did you get that fucking money? These are questions when anytime we confront the ruling elite, we tell them, hey, can you tell us how you acquired this money? Because there was a time they used to flaunt their money. They used to flaunt these stories. Oh, I used to read those silly, nonsensical stories by somebody like Jenga Karume. Jenga Karume says, I used to sell charcoal. Who the fuck would believe that charcoal would make you a billionaire? Those are not, unless you're exporting that charcoal to Mars or to Jupiter as an alternative energy source. But we've been fed with lies. We've been fed with cock and bull stories pushed by the mainstream media, shameless journalists, shameless editors who have you just run with any rubbish. You don't want to question how this person acquired this wealth. They were in government. They used to do X, Y, and Z, and somehow they landed into a lot of money. And because there were no checks and balances, suddenly they are billionaires and they are being praised. They are being worshipped by the church. We have the corrupt clergy. I see people are calling them kilaji. But this is the historical injustices that we have, especially from the economic front. It has to be all the companies that were grabbed by people hiding behind the narrative of privatization. The people who hid behind the narrative of a golden handshake. People were told, hey, take a golden handshake. You'll go home. And by the time those guys were taking a golden handshake and leaving state-owned corporations, which were permanent and pensionable, they went to the villages and went to rot there to die. So this is, now we get to the sugar belt. Amerix was talking about it. He has grown up from there. His family has, I'm from the coffee sector. The coffee sector has supported me. Somehow it collapsed. And you are talking right now, you go to Kiambu Road right now, all the coffee is being chopped down, is being turned to real estate. Why? Because of structural deficiencies created by these fucking members of parliament, the guys we are entertaining, the guys you guys think are gods or something. They go and pass laws which are passed or which are crafted or which are conjured somewhere, and then they come and now start cooking narratives and telling you what. I was telling you about sugar. There was this clown called Ivan Skidero. Ivan Skidero, by the time he became the Mumias Sugar CEO, he is from the sugar belt, but the interests of the farmers were the last thing on his mind. He wanted. By the time he got there, he went to maneuver his way into getting import licenses so that they induce closures of the main sugar production, Sony, Mumias, and whatever, so that when they are shut down, they've been shut down under the guise of, oh, we have maintenance and whatnot. I think you used to see those whatever. Then they would import. Now, those sugar import licenses used to be approved by parliament, by idiots like who? Like Bonnie Kalawale, like this other idiot, what's his name? This Waluke. Those guys who pretend that they are members or they hail from the Western region were part and parcel of the destruction of the sugar industry. And I don't understand how you guys still worship them. How do you allow an idiot like Bonnie Kalawale to address you in a funeral or in a whatever? How? Because he has been part of the destruction of the sugar sector. The sugar sector in the coffee sector in Mount Kenya has been destroyed by none other than fucking MPs from Mount Kenya region. So our problem begins and ends in parliament, but parliament has been an extension of the executive. And so what you needed to do, you just needed to go to treasury. You meet the bureaucratic pieces of shit in the treasury. You tell them, oh, this is how much you're getting. Can you sneak this amendment into the finance bill? And so finance bills every year, and what you used to call the budgets, became an overhaul of our entire economic structure. So they used to go and, coincidentally, believe it or not, I used to be close with the PS of Treasury many years ago called Joseph Kenywa. And one day I met him at his house and I told him, can we do a proposal for football? So we wanted, because my background is football, and we wanted to launch our sporting renaissance or